Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Squad Room, the podcast devoted to creating and optimizing a healthy and fulfilling life for first responders all around the world. I'm your host, Garrett Tesla. I'm a sergeant for a sheriff's department in Southern California, and on this show, my goal here is to talk to a variety of experts in a variety of fields looking for those force multipliers that I can apply to my own life, those things that can make me better, that can make me stronger, that can make me faster. And trust me, there's lots of room for improvement on the faster. Things that can make me healthier, things that can make me smarter, things that can make me more present, things that can make me more mindful, things that can make me more kind, things that can make me better at my job. All those things. And the goal of the show then, of course, is to talk to these people and then tease out what they do, what works for them, these people who are successful in this, and then try and apply that to my own life, my own challenging career. I like to have energy and focus and enthusiasm for my work and for my life, and that's not always easy for us, especially with me right now. I'm on night shift, and enthusiasm, energy, and focus are three words that do not come up very often when I'm on night shift. But the entire purpose of this podcast is, of course, to make myself better and to share what I'm learning with you. Before we get to the interview, I want to touch on a couple different things. If you're listening to this as it came out in August, you'll notice that we've been a little spotty over the last couple weeks with episodes. We started the beginning of the year with an episode every week, and we're doing very well with that. And I say we. I always remind everybody, because I say we. I don't know why, but we is me. There's no we in this. It's me and my computer. But we started the year doing weekly episodes, and that was a goal of mine. And we were plugging along and doing great and getting good numbers. But it's not sustainable over the summer for me because, again, I'm a one-man show. I'm a one-man band. I'm like the guy with the cymbals between his knees, and he's banging the drum, and he's playing the trumpet all at the same time. A one-man band who also has kids, who has a long-term home improvement project going on, a long-term home improvement project that he thought was going to be a short-term, which, as anyone who's done home improvement knows, there's no such thing as a short-term home improvement project. But we're almost there. We've almost reached the pinnacle or the peak, and we're on the downward slope. Anyway, my point is that yes, we've been a little spotty with episodes. They've been about every 2 weeks or so over the last couple of months rather. It's summer, and if you got kids, I think you hopefully understand. We family vacations, kids are out of school, so they got to be entertained because putting them in front of a TV for 8 hours is apparently a bad idea. So, kids are out of school. We're doing things as a family. We're out and about, doing this home improvement stuff. Stuff has to slide. And frankly, as much as I love doing this, as much as I want to make this, and I try to treat this as a profession, it's not the one that comes with a check every 2 weeks. So, it has to sit every once in a while. And also, we've had some guest scheduling issues and conflicts and a recording problem with one guest coming up. That just delayed us, a couple of episodes. The point is that come September, October, we'll be picking back up, hopefully doing weekly again. I have a long list of excellent people lined up who want to be on the show, who I've asked to be on the show, who I'm excited about having on the show. And it's just a matter of scheduling time. And time is valuable for all of us. So that's it on that. I won't belabor that point. But I do and want to belabor something, and I'm going to harp on this for a minute or two. I usually give a plug, or recently with our current setup, I've given a plug for for Audible.com, owned by Amazon, but Audible.com, which does audiobooks. And I love audiobooks, and I think they're fantastic, and I've given that plug at the end of the show in the last couple of months. But we have a new sponsor for starting tonight. And I want to give a big round of applause and a big congratulations to you. Yes, that's right. It's you. You are the sponsor of this episode, or the larger community anyway, is going to be the sponsor of this episode and the episodes coming up for the foreseeable future. If you're familiar with Patreon at all, Patreon is a system, a website, it's an idea. It's an idea that goes back thousands of years to the time when Mozart and Bach and all of them. Well, that wasn't thousands of years ago, but the point is, it's been a couple hundred years. This idea of patronage has been in play, where people who enjoyed content, who liked creators, would donate or pay to have those people participate or have those people create content for them. In the original terms, it was classical music and poetry and that sorts of things. And nowadays, it's podcasts and videos and YouTube and that sort of stuff. So when I say that you are the sponsors of this episode, I mean that quite literally. Patreon allows you to decide on your own a value for the show that you can then donate to the show on a per podcast or per episode basis that you feel is worth it. And I've gotten a lot of emails. And the reason I did this, I got a lot of emails from people who have said, let me know how I can help. What can I do? Is there a t-shirt I can buy? Is there a hat or a coffee mug? And we've done those things in the past, and they're frankly kind of a pain in the butt because I'm just kind of a stickler for quality. And this is a great way for people to get involved, to show some support for the show. It's hands-off in the sense that if you decide you want to donate $1 an episode, you can go to patreon.com/the squad room and you put in $1 an episode and it just charges and it comes to us. And again, us means me, but what I mean by us or me in this sense is that all of the proceeds that we will receive from this, as we do with any other sponsor, go directly back into the show. They go to make sure that the audio quality stays as good as it is. It goes to some travel that we do to meet with some of our guests. It goes to some of the testing I do on some things that I later bring to the show as a topic. It goes to a variety of stuff. It goes to the server space that it costs for the websites and the servers, the audio servers, to be able for you to listen to what you're listening to now. That's not free. It goes to that. This is not me taking that and going out and buying a 6-pack of my favorite IPA, which happens at the moment to be M Special's Greatland Special IPA, which I'm consuming at the moment. Point is, if you want to participate, and I would appreciate if you do, you can go to patreon.com/the squad room. That's patreon.com/the squad room. And you can make a donation or a patronage of any amount that you wish, from $1 on up, or I think they even allow $0.50. If you donate $5 or more an episode, I'm going to give you a shout out in every episode that you're donating for, and name drop you in the credits. But again, it's something to help the show. It's something that helps move forward. We have a lot of goals. Again, I don't know why I say we, but I have a lot of goals for the show. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things that I think are going to help people. A lot of things are going to help people move their lives forward. I've talked with a lot of you via email and phone, and I have a good sense of ways that I can continue to help. And it's just a matter of sometimes, frankly, honestly, of capital and being able to start to move the needle on some of those projects. So if you're considering it, I would appreciate it. It's patreon.com, patreon.com/the squad room. And don't think that for a second I don't feel a little awkward about throwing this out there and asking you, the listener, for money on a show that is free. And of course, it's going to continue to be free. And I struggled with it. But at the same time, the enthusiasm I get in the emails and in the iTunes reviews and in everything else tells me that there are people out there willing to support the show. They want to support the show. They just don't know how. And this is the great way to do it. So pretty straightforward. Patreon.com/the squad room. All right. Enough of that. Enough selling. Shake that off. Our guest today. If you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you know this man. I call him my personal Buddha. And I think you'll see why in this episode. And Traver Boehm is back. Traver was at the beginning of the show, long ago, some 74 episodes ago. He was kind of a co-host. He was on quite a bit. He was the guy that I bounced ideas off of. He was my coach. And just a phenomenal guy. I mean, I have a hard time wrapping my head around everything that he's done and that he's been through. And today we're talking about a really specific topic, really deep, dark, gritty topic, divorce. and by extension, divorce and grief. How do you get through a divorce? How do you get through grief? How do you manage those things? Traver went through a spectacularly disastrous divorce that was unexpected, that he never saw coming, and it forced him into what he now understands to be the best year of his life, but it was also the hardest. And he's got 8 tips that we go through on this show about how to get through a divorce and make it the best year of your life. It's intense stuff, and I'm lucky enough that I haven't had to experience this myself. We started this conversation on the misperception or the misunderstanding that cops got divorced more than the regular public, and for the longest time I thought that was true. But as we did research leading up to the show, we realized that statistically, anyway, or anecdotal, it's all anecdotal, because there's nothing that says for sure that cops get divorced more often. It may be true, but there's no data that suggests that it is actually true. So I think my hunch is that we just get divorced in a more spectacular fashion. We've got the beat wives, and we've got the affairs at work, and again, a book I reference all the time, but Dr. Kevin Gilmartin and his idea of the hypervigilance roller coaster and wanting to stay up in that hypervigilance area, that thrill, that adrenaline rush that it comes with it, leads us to those things, and leads me to believe that that's probably where this misperception comes from. Regardless, over half of marriages fail. 800,000 people are going to get divorced alone this year in the U.S. Lots of them are guys just like Traver. And Traver, former MMA fighter, former bodyguard, former CrossFit gym owner, a Renaissance man, not expecting any of this. He had to deal with it. And it was through that he learned how to help other people. And he's now helping other people. His website, onedaystronger.com, is helping people get through this and helping get through this grief. He did a whole TED Talk on making pain his guru. It's phenomenal. The show notes will have links to all of his information, his website, his Facebook, his Instagram, and of course his TED Talk, because it's phenomenal. So even if you haven't gotten a divorce, I think this episode you can get a lot out of. You can get stuff out of it with just the idea of dealing with grief, giving into that need to grieve. And that's hard for us. That's hard for any type A person, or hard for any cop who's expected to have all the answers. It's hard to give in to being able to grieve. But if it's not a divorce, it's a death in the family. Or even, and I think his 8 steps apply to this too, even for retirement, even for the guys who are retiring, about to retire, who have retired, you have suffered a loss. And I think that I just totally see how these steps parallel to that. So if you're going through a divorce, if you've been through a divorce, listen to this. If you think you're about to get a divorce, listen to this. If you haven't gotten a divorce and you're in a great marriage, good for you. Congratulations. We know it's tough. But listen to this, because you are going to go through some sort of loss at some point in your life. It's a fact of physics and math that we're all going to deal with loss. So here we are with Traver Boehm. Traver Boehm, welcome back to the squad room, my man.
Thank you so much, Garrett. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excited to have you back. We have you on occasionally. For people who, I gave a little bit of an introduction in the introduction. That's where you do introductions, by the way, if you haven't keyed in on that. But you're a frequent guest. I call you my personal Buddha because of all of the sage advice you give out there, and I wanted to have you.
Why, thank you.
Wanted to have you back on the show to talk about one specific thing that you know a lot about at this point, and it's something that we, in law enforcement especially, deal with quite a bit. And in the lead up to the show, we were both doing a little research, and it's about relationship. This show. We have you on for a lot of different things, but this show we're going to talk about divorce and relationships and loss, grieving that loss, and how to do it healthfully. Is that a word?
Yeah,
healthfully.
I think so. I like to say healthfully.
We're going to make it a word. How to do that in a healthy way, so that you don't jeopardize relationships with your kids, or even your ex-wife, or your future wife, or your department, or most concerning is jeopardizing your job through your dealings with the general public.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here to talk about today. I mean, we could talk about all sorts of different things with you, but that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
And you have told, you have a good reason for being the guest that I want to talk to about dealing with relationship, a breakup and a tumultuous relationship. So I wanted you to share that story again. You've shared it in the past, but we have a lot of new listeners, and not everyone has gone that far back. So tell us that story about how you went from married man to now, several years later, dealing with being the person I'm now going to help us get advice on the end of a relationship.
Sure. Well, first, let me say what a pleasure it is to be on. And because your listeners, believe it or not, email me more than any other audience that I've spoken on.
That's awesome.
And I love getting the emails are just fantastic. So I have people telling me about their meditation streaks. It's like cops are now talking shit about their meditation streaks with me, and I love it.
I love it. That's awesome.
So thank you for having me on. So back to man. I can tell you the day, Garrett. It was January 10th, 2015. I spent the morning in bed with my then ex-wife, happily married, in my head.
Then wife.
Then wife, yeah, now ex-wife. We played with the dog. We laughed. We joked, and I went to make breakfast, and did make breakfast. And I was sitting there at breakfast and was just looking at her and thought, something's on her mind. We'd just gone through the holidays. Like, we literally just had our anniversary. We'd had New Year's. We'd had Christmas. We'd had this incredibly festive time period. And I asked her sort of two questions at the same time. Like, is anything bothering you that you want to talk to me about? And what's your plan for the day? And she combined the two answers into one, saying, yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't want to be married to you any longer. I'll be gone within the hour. And bam, just like that, my entire life changed in an instant. And an hour later, she had packed up and she had left and she moved out. And I probably saw her, a handful of times since then. And the rest of our communication went from literally daily, multiple times a day, to every once in a while through a text, through an email, and then through attorneys, and now not at all. And it set a course of motion going in my life that it literally was the pivot point in my life. I can look back on before the day she left and after, and just massive, massive changes and differences.
You made a couple decisions that day, and you did a couple things that day that I think set you either. That day, that was going to be a day that either set you up for failure or set you up for success. And there's a couple things you did. What were those? Tell us about those.
Yeah, I made some really strong decisions that day, and some of it I will say just go off the cuff and say was divinely ordained, because there was a voice in my head that said, this is literally going to go one of two ways. You're either going to kill yourself or become a criminal or hurt somebody or flush your entire life down the toilet, or you're going to use this next period and this journey you're about to go on to up-level every single area of your life. So before my ex had left the house, I was on the phone with a therapist and saying, I'm about to go through some shit. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to handle it. I have no fucking idea what I'm doing in this arena. I'm going to need help. So please call me back. And the moment after she left, I get chills. I was sitting on the couch and made the decision right then and there to stop drinking. And I wasn't a big drinker. It wasn't a big part of my life, but I was a big pot smoker. So I made a decision to get rid of all of it, and to literally use it as a right turn, let's say, towards everything that I thought I always wanted, or the life that I felt was just out of reach. I thought, man, this is a massive opportunity on one level. On the other level, as far as drinking, and this is something we can talk about down the line, I thought was going to be the deciding factor, literally, of life and death. Of the next time I get drunk, I will probably put a bullet in my mouth. This is how serious the situation is. That was part one. I had read, oddly enough, maybe a week before, that men my age, 40 to 45, are in the highest suicide bracket. I remember reading this article at work and being like, oh, wow, that's weird. Like, why are guys my age killing themselves? And then it listed that this is the age when we get divorced. This is when we lose touch with our purpose. This is when, our lives transition and we don't transition with them. And so I'm sitting here on this couch with, realizing that my life has just taken a massive turn and thinking, fuck, I've just been thrust into that bracket. I'm about to turn 39. I'm about to get divorced. I'm about to lose the entire future that I thought I had, a family, a dog, a house, you name it. I don't want to fucking kill myself. But I bet you every single one of those guys that did sat exactly where I'm sitting right now and just made a different set of decisions. And so I took all the booze I had in the house and I threw it out. And that was, I can tell you, man, that was 928 days ago because I haven't touched it since. And I can tell you that I'm done with the divorce and the paperwork signed and, she's out of my life and I've moved on to amazing things, but I'm not out of it yet. It doesn't just go away because I write a book or because I can come on and talk about it. So I just made the decision that I couldn't think of anything good that would come from drinking through this process. That was a big part of it. Like there was no good decision in my life that was going to be at the end. I would look back and be like, that great thing happened because I got drunk during my divorce. But I could think of a million bad things, from car accidents to fights to poor health to weight gain to suicide, literally, that would come or could come at the end of alcohol. So I got rid of it.
That same day, too, you Googled how to survive a divorce, didn't you?
Yeah. It's almost comical, Garrick. Like, I'm an athlete, right? Like, I don't know. I'm a dude. Like, I don't know what to do. So I Googled it. It seemed like the right thing to do. And I found this litany of crap, of just shit, of advice such as, I laugh about this now. It was like, go take a bath. Like, take a hot bubble bath. It's going to be okay. And I was thinking, my whole life just got ripped out from under me. The kid I thought I was going to raise, the wife I thought I was going to have, the house I thought I was going to be in, the future is gone. And your advice is to sit in hot water with bubbles, and that's going to make everything okay. Are you guys serious? Like, I want to drive to the author's house and just smack them. Like, come on, give some real advice or be honest. That was where I think that's why I wrote Today I Rise, because I wanted my voice of honesty to be something that someone else could find. And that's what I'll come on tell people directly. I work with people every day who are going through divorce and say, guess what? This is going to suck. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever had to deal with. It could be. This is going to be fucking miserable. You're going to hate your life on a second-to-second basis until you don't. And it was literally that kind of honesty that I had to search out and seek, as opposed to have someone present to me. And there was so much of the opposite of bypass, of like, oh, this is just your path, yada, yada. This is just your spiritual journey and you should enjoy it. And yes, there's parts of that, but no one will look me in the eye, or very few people and very, very few resources, and say, hang on, dude, this is going to be a fucking ride. Here are some concrete steps to make sure that at the end of today, you're still alive. And that's what I needed.
You got a text from another friend, too. I thought that had some sage perspective. If you remember the text I'm talking about, but
yeah, the phone call.
It was a phone call.
Actually that. Yeah. I called my buddy Johnny King because his sister had said he went on a business trip and came home to an empty apartment when he was married, and I found out that's actually not that uncommon. And he said, this is going to be the worst year of your life, so straight up honest, or you'll be able to look back on it as the best year of your life. But either way, it's going to be the hardest. And so that's the given. Like there's so much truth in that statement of how you look back on it at the end is up to you. But it's going to be a pummeling along the way, no matter what. And that was like, that is the frame of the entire year was, okay, I can take concrete steps. I'm not in control of so much here, but yet I'm in control of so much here. And the pieces I put in place and the action steps that I take, the honesty, the openness, the vulnerability, whatever you want to talk about it, the truth, the realness of it can turn it into the best year of my life. So, but either way, it's going to be hell.
I think that's an important distinction, the difference between it's either the worst or the best, but it's going to be the hardest. And how sometimes the best can be the hardest. I mean, we follow Stoic, or we try to follow and learn from Stoic philosophy a lot on this show, and even the title of Ryan Holiday's book, "The Obstacle is the Way." The only way through what you're going, the only way to deal with what you're going through is to go through it, not go around it, not take a bubble bath, it's not just your path. So, for us cops, to put it in a cop perspective, we said at the beginning that it's actually a misnomer that cops have a higher divorce rate than the general population, or at least there's no real data to support the idea. It's all sort of subjective.
Okay.
But like I said before we hit record, we sometimes do it in spectacular fashion, and and for cops who want some insight, I always recommend Dr. Kevin Gilmartin's book, Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement, where he talks and walks through the detachment that starts to go with law enforcement work. And a previous guest, Josh Mons, from the Army, had a great quote in an episode where he said he was at his most tactically proficient when he was at his most emotionally detached. And I see it in myself. I see it in partners. I see it in cops I meet through the show. And the struggle with, it's easier to be emotionally detached because you're better at your work. But then how do you re-engage and go back and forth, what Gilmartin calls the hypervigilance roller coaster between dealing with family and dealing with work, and eventually you just turn off the family switch or the relationship switch, which sends us on this which sends us on this, path towards relationship struggles, divorce, problems with our kids, etc. On top of that is the peak, that adrenaline rush of being at work and being in that vigilant state. We sometimes, it's easier for us to stay there and seek it out in other ways. And we seek it out through alcohol use or affairs or that sort of stuff. And
the adrenaline.
Right, exactly. So maybe one thing to bring it back to you, though, is maybe in hindsight, can you tell us some of the things that you now see from your perspective that were warning signs that led up to that? Do you have any perspective now or understanding of where you might have unknowingly participated in the demise of the relationship?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was high every day of my marriage, and I drank a fair amount. I was addicted to building businesses. I was addicted to the future. Completely. Everything was about the someday. In addition to let me just throw myself down a flight of stairs every day in the gym so that I'm so exhausted that I don't have to feel. Mm-hmm. So it was this whole concoction of dissociation from my feelings, right? If I'm high, fantasizing about a future business and writing out prospective plans for it, then I don't have to realize that, like, man, I don't have a good communication set with my wife at the time, or there's something in this marriage that's bothering me too, but I don't have the capacity or the understanding or even the language to address it. So let me go do as many power cleans as I can in 45 minutes and beat the shit out of a punching bag and then go run a 5K uphill, so that when I get home, I'm just so numb and exhausted that it's okay. And if that doesn't work, then give me 2 beers and a joint, right? Which to me was exciting. People think, oh, it's, you're just completely zoned out. It's like, no, I was invigorated. Mm-hmm. It was keeping everything at bay.
Yeah. Well,
I have that same mindset, man. I was an ex-fighter. It's like I lived for the rush. Mm-hmm.
So again, for people who haven't heard you before, you came from a professional fighting background, a personal bodyguard, and then you moved into, acupuncture school, but also entrepreneurship. You had your own clinic. You also, and you were also a personal trainer. You owned a CrossFit gym. You're co-owner of a CrossFit gym, and had all these different pots boiling at the same time. I'm very much as an entrepreneur and an athlete. It's interesting that you identify with that same sort of hypervigilance roller coaster and the idea that it's easier to be emotionally detached.
Yeah.
So now that this day had happened, you went on a course, and we actually did a whole episode a while ago on what that Year to Live project was. And tell us the short version of what the Year to Live project was. There's a whole episode on it. People can go scroll back through and find. But what's the 2-sentence version of that?
The 2-sentence version of it is I lived the entire year of 2016 as if it were my last year to be alive. And that was going back and healing a lot of old relationships. It was personal growth experiences. It was volunteering. It was working with people who were dying. It was as the big one of sitting in a dark room by myself for a month. I was giving a talk. It was really experiencing and gathering experiences for the next half of my life, in addition to filling in the holes that I was avoiding by chasing that adrenaline and by chasing that high-level feeling all the time.
And so I think the obvious first question is, after you've gone through the divorce, you got the advice that this was going to be the hardest year of your life. It was also going to be it was going to be the hardest year of your life, and it was either going to be the worst year of life or the best year of your life. Here we are about, 20 months later, 18 months later. And I want to ask you, which one is it? Which one was 2016?
Oh, it was both the hardest and the best.
Yeah.
Truly, I can say that with straight honesty, that because of where I am on the outside, or because of where I now look at the position I'm in now, I grew so much from that trauma. And I literally remember this thought too, Garrett, at the time of, I'm not going to survive this experience, right? I will not live through it. And then having the download or whatever, or hearing, yes, but the you that you'll have to grow into in order to survive it will survive it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the me sitting there on the couch the day she left was destined for death from that experience at my own hand. Mm-hmm. But the me then it was this constant series of my comfort zone went 3,000 miles away, and I was just thrust daily into all kinds of experiences that forced me to grow into who I am now. And now I look back at the me that was sitting on that couch, and I can't even recognize that man or his life. So yeah, truly the best year. Was it something I want to repeat? Fuck no.
Right.
Absolutely not. Just crucible after crucible after crucible. A lot of that self-inflicted, or self-created. Mm-hmm. For the sake of the growth opportunities. But man, it is truly that my life is so different now. So different. And for the most part, all for the better.
So at some point on your blog, you wrote a post about the 8 steps that you felt were the ideal for getting through this process that didn't include taking a hot bubble bath. So
say that last part again.
Oh, you wrote this blog post with at some point during this process with your 8 steps that you developed to get through this process that didn't involve a bubble bath. So I want to go through those because I think that's the meat of a good discussion here, and
sure.
And then you can elaborate on them as we go. So tell us about step 1, basically. What's this first step when someone gets this decision's made that they're getting a divorce, or they come home to that empty apartment or house? What's that step 1?
Step 1, man, and this is the one that I think most people miss, is to actually grieve. And especially men listening to this. Like, the advice I got from other men was fuck your way out of it. Like, literally have as much sex as you can till this just all goes away and you forget about it. As opposed to just get really comfortable on the bathroom floor where you're going to spend the vast majority of your time for the next 9 months crying it out, bawling it out, snotting it out. Just fucking grieve. Like, literally let yourself have the experience of falling apart. Mm-hmm. Are there apropos times to do that? Is that a great thing to do while you're pulling someone over for you guys? No, it's not. I went to work every day, but then I would go home and fall apart. But I gave myself permission to fall apart as hard as I could, because I believed, and I still believe, that the more you let yourself grieve, the higher you're going to come out of it. So it's like the lower you get to where you're dancing right on the razor's edge of sanity, the further you're going to come out of it. And that's the thing I think most people skip. So grief doesn't go anywhere, right? If I don't get rid of it, it's just going to sit here. It'll wait 40 years.
You just
and
said
it'll. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to screw you up, but I want to touch on something you said. You said you gave yourself permission. What? Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I mean, we're free-thinking people. We can do whatever we want, but you had to give yourself permission. And maybe as kind of that hyper masculine kind of guy who you were, the fighter, the entrepreneur, the athlete, Division I athlete, that sort of stuff. Like, was it in there? Was there something in your masculinity that you had to allow yourself? What do you mean when you say you gave yourself permission?
I just had to grant myself humanity, man. I just had to say, like, despite my outward accomplishments, despite how I'm built, despite what I can do with my body or what I think or what my ego drives me to do in the world, I just really got hurt. I didn't want this experience. I got hit by a bus, right? And just to acknowledge the humanness within myself and say, no matter what, no matter who, no matter where, this sucks. And it happened to you, so let it suck. Forget about the other stuff. Like, underneath all of those accomplishments, underneath all of that type A personality, underneath the bodyguard, the fighter, all of it was a human that got my heart broken and had my relationship ended and had my wife walk out on me. And that was extraordinarily painful. And just so I needed to admit it. I almost looked at it logically, Garrett, of, if I broke my leg and yet I walked around saying, like, it's not broken, it's fine. It's not broken. Like, I'm a fighter, it's not broken. I'm a dude, it's not broken. Then it wouldn't heal. So, like, I kind of used some, like, male logic to go, if you want to get through this really as fast and as clean and as best as possible, then be honest about it. Even though being honest about it isn't going to be cool, sexy, masculine, or tough. But I wanted the outcome, so I was outcome driven. And so people listening to this, especially guys, if you're outcome driven, then be honest. It sucks. It hurts. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, men are still human. Cops are still human. Fighters are still human. It's the heart knows no other qualification that eliminates it from feeling pain.
Okay, and so giving yourself the chance to grieve and permission to grieve, that's number one. What was number two?
Number two was to accept the situation and then try to reframe it. And so this is where the work kind of came in. It was like, okay, I can pretend this didn't happen and then go on with the rest of my life bypassing it and saying, oh, it's just part of my path. It's great, whatever. Or saying, this blows. I hate it. It sucks. Now, it's like cut, full stop. Now, what do I get to do with it? Okay, how can I reframe it? So as opposed to this moment, I would tell people, like, this isn't going to define me, but I'm going to let it define my future. I'm going to say the pain I'm feeling now, I can do one of two things. It can either break me or it can break me so wide open, and I can use it to as fuel for whatever I want, for whatever changes I want to make in my life. Awesome. So yes, did it hurt? Absolutely. But can I turn it into something positive? That's on me. I can't decide whether it hurts or not. It's just like a given. It's a universal truth. This hurts. What's not a universal truth is what I decide to do with it. So I reframed it, and I had a buddy come over like 2 days after this all happened. He said, what are you going to do? How are you going to get through this? And I looked right at him and said, Mikey, I'm going to pretend like I have cancer. People that get cancer diagnoses change their whole lives usually like that. How they think, how they eat, how they sleep, how they interact with other humans, how they treat themselves, right? It's permission. So that's exactly, I'm going to reframe this situation as if I have cancer, and I'm going to change my whole fucking life. Boom. Get after it.
Number three is one we talk about a lot on this show about, we've actually done full episodes on it. What's three?
Three is gather your team.
Gather your team. That's a big one.
Gather your team. Yeah, you are not going to get through this alone. Especially men. We like to, like, if you asked me, what does my ego want to do the day after she left? It is kill all my social media, move to an island where I live by myself, crawl into a hole, and just wait for the inevitable death. And that'd be great. It's perfect. Like that. It sounds so much better than having to go to work or deal with people or yada yada. But this is where it's hard, but you got to reach out. You got to reach out to people. And I think especially for men, get professional help. Like I literally was on the phone with a therapist before she left, and I was in therapy for that entire year and a half. And I have no qualms or shame or weirdness about that at all. Mm-hmm. It was a huge help to me. It was a huge, like, people will pay, women will pay me to teach them how to deadlift. Right? Mm-hmm. But then, and that's cool. Yeah, I have a coach. He teaches me how to deadlift. Okay, why? Because I didn't know how to deadlift. Okay, well, me, Traver, did not know how to get through an emotional shitstorm by myself. So I looked at it as if I was just hiring a coach. I'd actually call my therapist a coach. He'd be like, you realize you're the only person that calls me a coach. I'm like, yeah, but that's why I'm here. Because I'm actually an emotional moron. I'm the guy in the like gym fail videos on the emotional landscape. You are a good coach. So keep me away from like doing the lat pull down machine with my legs and making this whole thing take 20 years. Like, teach me how to get through this and keep me sane. And this is someone that's gone through, he's literally sat across from thousands and thousands of people that have gone through the same experience I have. So he knows the patterns, he knows the pitfalls, he knows, et cetera. Just like I'd sat across from thousands of people that didn't know how to deadlift. So it was like, once we take the shame out of it, which is a fascinating idea, then it was a really, really good idea to have a therapist. And he was a part of my team. My friends became a part of my team. You became a part of my team. It just was vital to have humans that at 2 a.m. I could call and say, I'm not okay right now. I just need you to tell me that everything's going to be fine. And I had guys that would be like, sorry, I'm asleep, but everything's going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Talk to me about whatever you want. And then I'd hang up. Gather your team. Do not isolate. Do not. Please, if you're listening to this and you're going through some shit, no matter what it is, do not isolate. We're social creatures. We're tribal creatures. We need the help of each other.
So, yeah, it is something we talk about a lot on this show, about building your team. And we talked about having your coach or your physical trainer, whatever it is, having your physical therapist on your team, having a doctor that understands your work, your friends, having that team. And I like the idea of calling a therapist a coach. And we've had Jay Nagdeman on before. He's a clinical psychologist, but he works for LAPD. All he does is talk to cops all day long. And he was always emphasizing the idea that therapy is more performance enhancement than it is fixing something that was broken in the past. And it kind of goes to what you were saying about taking what you've done or what you've been through, but shaping that into how you can better perform in the future. And I think that opens the idea of therapy to people more often. That if it's especially guys, like, if it's performance enhancement, sure, I'll do it. They'll take Chinese herbs and they'll and they'll go to therapy if it means that they get better at something or they're more competitive versus
absolutely
putting a Band-Aid on.
But
something.
As soon as we have to acknowledge first that we're deficient or that we don't know something, then it's a shitstorm.
That's where the challenge
no, I wouldn't do that.
Right. Okay, so number 4. What was number 4?
Number 4 is 3 words: move, eat, sleep. And it's basically coming back to the vehicle that you're going to have to go through, you're going to have to live in on this journey, is your body. And so while the journey itself is going to be hard no matter what you do, you are in control to some degree of the vehicle that you're going to go through it with. So every day you got to move your body. This is, emotions get stuck. Chinese medicine views that emotions get stuck in the body. I believe emotions get stuck in the body. I know concretely how much better the rest of my day was when I started my morning with exercise. So literally just getting up, getting to the gym, going for a run, lifting weights, especially because I was angry. So using the anger, power cleaning was my best friend because I wanted that bar to hit me in the chest. I wanted to be tired. And then my day went from, a 10 of shittiness to like a 6 or to a 5 or to a 4. And that was clear on the days that I took care of myself. And, we've talked at nauseum about eating well and sleeping well. You've had much better experts on than me about it. But those three things, it's like, what can you control in this situation? Mm-hmm. I can control that I move. I can control what I put in my mouth and chew and swallow. And to some degree, I can control how I sleep. But I want to make sure that it's emphasized that I'm taking care of my sleep. Be that getting, medication if you need it, melatonin if you need it, herbs if you need it. Because anyone who's gone through a heartbreak period, sleep is not the best friend. Mm-hmm. But literally take care of the vehicle that you're gonna live in throughout this process.
Number 5 was one I like. It's something I've struggled with developing a practice for. But you mentioned earlier that cops are emailing you on the regular about their new habits. Number 5 is meditation, or staying present rather, but through one of those ways is through meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. I joke with people half-heartedly, but then not, and say that meditation saved my life throughout my divorce. Because, what does meditation teach you? It teaches you not to let your thoughts take you on a ride. It teaches you to say, oh, that's a really shitty thought about my ex. I noticed that. I'm going to let it go and get back to being right here, right now. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a really shitty thought about the fear I have about the future. Well, I can't do anything about that right now, so why don't I let that thought go, take a deep breath, come back to a center point, and hold space for where I am within the day. So breakup, heartbreak, divorce is this god-awful battle between, living in the past when things were good, or reliving arguments or fights, or the day she left or he left or whatever, and then projection of the future of the now what, right? I had this massive hole blown open in my future. Mm-hmm. The future I thought I had was no longer existent, which means every possibility exists from good to bad. And sitting there getting in a tailspin over that was not going to help. So I started, literally, this was my practice every morning. Get up, pee, go ass to cushion, and meditate for 25 minutes, period, done, no questions. And I would cry during the meditation. I would freak out sometimes, but it would set me up for a significantly calmer day. And I realized in that practice that if I can use this tool to feel okay on the worst of days when my life is literally falling apart, then imagine how powerful it's going to be to continue this practice after the shitstorm of my life has calmed, or that my external life has calmed itself down. Meditation is massive, for everybody all the time, but especially when dealing with loss and trauma, mm-hmm. because it keeps you present, right? You're not projecting into the future, and you're not fantasizing about the past or swapping the two.
And we'll come back to meditation at the end and some of the stuff you're doing
sure.
now. Number 6, pain management.
Number 6. Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah, sure. You have to learn now skillful ways to deal with your pain, because all of a sudden there was this new element, at least in my life, which was this massive amount of pain. And I'm going to quote a buddy of mine, Jeremy, who writes for, if you know, the Long Distance Love Bomb, he's that guy. And he just put something up the other day that really resonated. And it said, let it bleed, let it heal, leave it be, scar faster than before. I thought, man, that is spot on with the work I'm trying to do and do with people who are going through a divorce. You have to deal with this new entity. It's called pain. It may not have been here yesterday when you were happily married or happily in your relationship, but now it's here. It's like a new person. So what do you do with this person? Do you use them and say, okay, pain, you're gonna fuel me to quit drinking. You're going to fuel me to go to therapy. You're going to fuel me to get in shape. You're going to fuel me to study a new language. You're going to fuel me to find new growth within myself so that I can use you skillfully. I think that word's really important for people to swallow, is skillfully, right? You as a cop probably deal with people all day long that unskillfully deal with pain.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's your clientele.
Right.
Those are your customers,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the opposite of that? Is it getting loaded? Is it, having an affair? Is it beating someone up? Is it doing drugs? Is it banging a hooker? Is it whatever? No. It's using it in a way that supports your life, your goals, and your well-being. And I know it's possible if you're conscious and making conscious choices, which comes from being present, which comes from all the stuff, 1 through 6 before it.
Mm-hmm.
But just acknowledging the fact that this is a new entity that we have to deal with. And like the asterisk to the and is the greatest fuel source on the planet. Right? Nothing drives us more than pain.
Sure.
Right? It takes us to the gym. It makes us do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So skillful management of pain, absolutely. Which is another reason why I also quit drinking, quit smoking, didn't sleep with anybody. Like I wanted to feel it so that I could use it.
Makes sense. Tough.
Yep.
Very tough.
Yeah.
But like you say, our clientele are people who are all dealing, almost all of them are dealing with some sort of pain, either acute or chronic.
Of course.
And then we, I think also, on the professional side, we endure and encounter our own, traumas and stressors that accumulate that we have to manage. The pain management.
God, I can't imagine a day in your job, man. I can't imagine what you guys see on like a slow day, how painful it must be. And then just look at the country. We consume 80% of the world's opiates. Yeah. Like there are a million ways to not feel pain as an American. A million.
Yeah.
None of them will help you get to where you want to go.
So this
is to say, like, if you want to use bravado, if you want to use machismo and ego and type A personality, it's like, all right, I'll fucking embrace that pain. The same thing that made me want to become a police officer, the same thing that made me, Traver, want to become a fighter was, I want to get good with pain. I want us to be homies.
Yeah. It brings up I think that was a big part of why I even started. I think in hindsight was I wanted to understand the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up in my middle class, very comfortable upbringing, and had no connection to that other side of life that I knew existed.
Yeah.
But that I didn't understand. And I think that was actually a very subconscious motivator to.
I bet you are fluent in it right now.
Fluent that's the right
PhD.
word. Yeah. All right. So number 7. I like number 7, but I have some questions about it. What's number 7?
Okay. Number 7 is get a life.
Yeah.
And that is, I frame this as I call it the 2-island theory of heartbreak. Like you were living on one island. Whether you left the relationship or your partner did, you basically got dragged out in the surf and kicked out. And what you have to do is go through the shitty process of swimming to the new island. But when you get there, you got to build it. And that is doing things that are new to you. One, it helps create new people, new communities, new cognitive pathways, you name it, new experiences that don't have anything to do with your ex or have to do or with your old community that's related to your ex. So it's a call to action. It's saying, what do you want to learn that's new? Surfing, jiu-jitsu, guitar, cooking, salsa, Spanish, languages. What subjects do you want to study? Like you got to pack your day, man. Because what has grief done? Grief has opened a giant space. Mm-hmm. Right? You're no longer making breakfast for that person. Like I remember one of the most traumatic things was going to Trader Joe's and looking down in my shopping cart and being like, oh man, there's 2 dozen eggs, 3 steaks, and some ice cream. Holy shit, there's not a lot of food in here. There's space. Mm-hmm. And so I needed to fill that space with stuff that was positive. And that led me to new people. That led me to Toastmasters. That led me to it led me to getting back to jiu-jitsu. It led me to new humans in a new community. And it made life okay because it's like, cool. If I'm learning Spanish or surfing, I'm not thinking about my ex or how shitty it is to be single or fearing that I'm never going to have kids or whatever it may be. I'm just surfing and learning Spanish.
Is that something you did right away, or did you have to go through the grieving process and all of that first? Because I think some people would think there's a difference between extending yourself and deepening connections in different areas versus burying yourself in these other activities and not dealing with it. So can you
Absolutely.
grieve and do this at the same time, or do you have to wait?
I think you have to wait a bit. Right? Again, the grieving process, there's this absolutely fabulous line I learned at a Zen center, which says the itinerary is subject to reality. Right? So day two, I could have been like, cool, I'm going to go take Spanish. And this happened over and over and over, Garrett, where I would like make appointments or set up dinners with people or plans to go to the movies and then did not leave the house because I just, like, my mouth was bigger than my eyes were bigger than my mouth as far as thinking I was going to be okay and I wasn't. Mm-hmm. So with a divorce or a major trauma, this is talking like 6-8 months down the line. Mm-hmm. You know, you gotta hunker down. Like what happens when an animal gets hurt? It crawls in the corner and it just licks its wounds. But then at some point you got to come out. And trust me, no matter where you are in that process, it's going to feel like death to go to a party without your ex. It's going to feel like death to go to a Spanish class and realize that you don't get to go home and share this with someone. Like leaving the house became very hard, but was so valuable after the fact. Just like going to the gym for a new person. Like it took all my motivational speeches to myself of like, you can go to Spanish class, you can do it, you fought in a goddamn cage. Then I come home and be like, Spanish class was awesome. And then the next day, be like, you can do it. You can go to Spanish class. You'll be okay. So yeah, I'd say give yourself the window of, whatever's okay, whatever you need, but realize if you're wallowing too long. And this is all subjective, right? Like you may go out to Spanish class and then walk out halfway through and come home and be like, fuck that. I still need a couple months. Mm-hmm. Or have your friends dragging you out of the house and say, hey man, it's been 2 years. You got to go do something with yourself. Yeah. Like life goes on and life is beautiful. Even on the days it hurts.
Number 8. The
last one.
The hardest one is the last one.
Yeah. And that's to forgive and let go. And this is the hardest pill to swallow, especially if you're not the one that ended the relationship. And that's to say over and over and over again, this isn't about them, that person anymore. Now this is all about me. And forgiveness is a beautiful act. It's also selfish. I say like, yeah, you know what? Fuck your ex. Forgive them for you. Because you're not going to move forward. You're not going to let go of that relationship. It's like wanting to, a good way to think about it is like, I don't want to close this old book, but I can't open this new book until I do. Mm-hmm. And most of us sit like, well, I want to reread the old book, and I bet you if I read it enough times, it'll have a different conclusion. Nope. The book's written. It's closed. Let it go. Take your hand off of it. Open a new book. Don't worry about the old one. Life is this unexpected deal. It's a journey, right? But by forgiving your ex or whoever this person is, or forgiving yourself for the challenges you brought into the relationship, it truly is freedom. And man, it is an act of strength. When I talk to men, they say, well, fuck that. I'm not going to forgive her. She doesn't deserve it. Like, okay. Like, I'm too strong to forgive her. Like, no. Let's reframe this. It is the greatest act of strength for yourself. For yourself, not for them. Mm-hmm. I'm not concerned what my ex is doing right now. I've forgiven her for leaving our marriage. I've forgiven myself for the challenges I brought to it. Why? Because we were both doing the best that we could. And I don't know her full story. I may never get it. Right? I know what she's told me. I know how a lot of that doesn't make sense to me, and it may never make sense to me. It doesn't mean it doesn't make sense to her. It doesn't mean that she doesn't have her own path to walk down. It doesn't mean she's not going to have future challenges. It doesn't mean she's not lying right to my face. I don't know. I can't concern myself with anything about her because I can't control her.
I
but I
think,
can forgive her, and then I can walk forward in the world without this baggage.
and I want to emphasize something you touched on was that you're forgiving her for your sake, not for hers.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
110%, man. 110%. Like this, I needed to be free of this pain. Like there's some quote, and I'm going to screw this up, about like, drinking poison and thinking it's going to hurt the other person. Like that's what holding on to all of this is.
Mm-hmm.
If I wake up every morning hating her, like her day isn't any worse.
Right.
My day sucks.
Right.
I don't want to have sucky days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But by forgiving her and not thinking about her, it lets me be free to enjoy everything. Every part of my day can be amazing, but not if I'm focused on her.
So at the end of this whole process, in the blog post you wrote, that evolved over the course of time into your new book, and I want to talk about that. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, one of the, Garrett, a fascinating thing happened when I was going through my divorce, which was I made it public. I wrote about it for all the Year to Live project stuff. I was very open about what I was going through, and people started reaching out to me saying, okay, I'm going through the same thing. You seem to be doing really well, or better than I'm doing. Can you help me? And this was coupled, I'll tell a quick story of, and I've written about this in the book, that I went on 2 separate dates last year. And these were both with women that I met on dating apps. And so we talked a few times, like we'd had a conversation on the phone, everything was kosher. And both times I showed up, they were either blackout drunk. Well, one of them was just blackout drunk. I'll just tell it her story. Blackout drunk, right? And so I'm there meet her at a restaurant. She's wasted, pouring a drink down her shirt. Her friend's there with her. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? We were talking 2 hours ago. She was fine. And our friend says, she's just going through a lot right now. And so she actually runs out. Your audience will love this. Gets in her car and starts driving away, yelling out the window, "Follow me to my hotel." I'm going, what on earth did I just step into? Like, what's going on here? So I hop in my car, follow her to her hotel, which is only a couple blocks away. She stumbles out of the car, parks half on the sidewalk, and I put my arm around her, sort of carry her into her room, drop her on the bed, and she passes out. I'm going, oh wow, okay. I'm now alone in a hotel room with a woman I do not know, and she's blackout drunk. She's out. So one, this could be really bad for me. I don't want to be here. There's like pill bottles all over the room, yada, yada. But I'm thinking for her, holy shit, honey, you have no idea who I am. You have no idea what I'm capable of. You have no idea if I'm a serial killer or just a bad guy having a bad night. I get the hell out of there as fast as possible. The next morning she calls and apologizes and says, hey, let's do this again. I was like, what happened last night? What the F is going on? She said, I'm sorry, but I'm going through a divorce. I said, you know what? You know why I showed up completely sober? You want to know why I showed up like 622 days without a drink and feeling better than I ever have in my entire life? Because I'm going through a divorce. So same stimulus, here are the 2 potential outcomes. So I tell that story because as people were reaching out to me, like she was my avatar. I was like, there's people out there that don't realize that they don't have to flush their lives down the toilet because of this. She had a kid. I was like, how great of a mom are you being if this is who you are? She ran a company. Like, how great of a CEO or a boss? And how do you feel in your own body, in your own life, if this is the actions you're taking? You got to hate yourself. And I get it. So long story short, I started cataloging my emails to people. And had one woman specifically who was a friend of a girl I went to high school with, whose husband just literally same thing, same as mine, like woke up after Christmas and he's like, hey, sorry, I'm out of here. Boom, gone. And so I would write her an email every day. And it was a bit of my story. It was some of this stuff we just talked about. Sometimes it was like an action step of like, hey, do this thing. Or, hey, here's something that I went through that I think you're going to be able to resonate with. And it was just no punches pulled. It was everything from like, I hated myself. I vomited when my ex told me she was leaving. Just wide open, honest stories so that someone could read what I wrote and she could and go, man, he gets it. He's gone through the same thing and is willing to be honest about it. And so at the end of a period of time, I had these 90 letters that I was giving to people. I was just passing them out. Like, where are you in the process? Okay, here, read this. Tomorrow I'll send you another one. And someone, of course, said like, hey, you should put this in a book. And so I just compiled those 90 emails into 90 individual letters to someone that just found out they were getting dumped or just found out that their marriage was over.
And the book, the format of the book, I thought was unique too, and that you literally start at day one. Like, this is your day one, and this is your day two.
Yeah.
And the action
like a little
steps
guide.
in each.
And what really helped, Garrett, was when I wrote to her, when I started writing this down, I was talking to another buddy about it, and he said, yeah, write to you. Write to what you wanted to hear that day you Googled, how do I survive my divorce? Like, write to the guy that was sitting there on his couch, just devastated. And so I did, and that book flew out of me. I literally sat at was just constantly writing for her. Constantly, just like, yeah. And so a cathartic experience to myself because I knew the pain. When she would call and say, like, I can't get my hand to stop shaking. I haven't eaten 48 hours. I can't sleep. Like, I was like, oh, yeah. You know what's going to happen tomorrow? This. You're going to be fine for 20 minutes, and then you're going to smell something, and then boom, you're going to be back down. Why? I've been there.
Right.
Get off Facebook. Get off social media. Go for a run. Do these 5 things.
And that book is now out.
Yep.
Today I Rise.
Yep.
Available on Amazon?
Yep. Available on Amazon.
So people can search Today I Rise or your name, obviously, and we'll put the links in the show notes to do that too, on how to find it. The other thing that you're up to right now, too, we go back, like I said we were going to come back to it, but number 5, that stay present meditation step, a challenge for me and everybody else out there, and you have taken it upon yourself to develop a course now to help people with developing that habit of meditation.
Absolutely. And one of your listeners, I'll just say his first name, a guy named Josh, just sent me an email saying he's on a 12-day meditation streak, and he's taken the course and used the course. But I wanted to demystify meditation. I wanted to talk to someone, like, again, all this stuff, I'm basically talking to myself. It's like, how do I take a fighter and explain meditation to a fighter? How do I take it and explain it to an athlete? Okay, we're going to go 3-minute rounds. That's how we're going to start. Why? Because a fight starts with 3-minute rounds, and I know what that feels like. Let's take all the for lack of a better term, the spirituality out of it. And let's just talk about what it means to be present. And just like I would train you to deadlift, we're going to go 3 minutes today. And then tomorrow we're going to go 3 minutes again. And then the next day we're going to go 4 minutes. Then we're going to go 4 minutes again. Then we're going to go 5 minutes and up to 8 minutes. Then we're going to back down so you don't get overwhelmed. You're going to have like a deload day so it doesn't freak you out. And then you're going to do a long workout of meditation. Maybe we'll go 8 minutes or 10 minutes. And so I put this course together because I was actually teaching at both the CrossFit gym I owned, and then later on in my travels at another CrossFit gym. And I found that it really, really helped people to have a frame like that of, we're just going to do this for 3 minutes and we're not going to try to levitate.
Right.
And again, just be honest with what is the practice. Like, hey, you're not going to turn your mind off. That's not the goal of this. So let's no bullshitize meditation.
And how can people find that course?
And that's on Teachable, that platform. It's called 20-Minute Meditation, or you can search under, I have a school on Teachable called One Day Stronger. Or go to my website, onedaystronger.com, and there's links for it all over the place too. But the course itself is on Teachable.
And again, we'll put the links in if you're out and about and can't get to it right now.
Thank you.
But onedaystronger.com or thesquadroom.net for the show notes for that. And we'll put the links in. And if Josh is listening, I'd love an email from Josh to find out his own tips and tricks for how he's been able to use your course to implement it into his life. So, Josh.
Yeah, he sent me a fabulous email about how it's changed everything.
Oh,
I was like, by the way, I'm stealing this as a testimonial.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to know you've helped me in my meditation practice quite a bit.
Thank you.
Taken the course, and it's such an important thing, and it's one of the easiest things to ignore, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So it's definitely it takes work, but it also takes some self compassion. Again, if that's a word, some compassion for yourself about the fact that this isn't it's not a practice that you're perfect at. And like you just said, the whole point is not to win at shutting your mind off, because you never will, but to be present with those thoughts and acknowledge and control those thoughts. And that, again, another topic, because we've had you on before where we've talked ad nauseum about meditation. You even did a episode 27, I think, is you doing a guided meditation.
Meditation, yeah.
That ability to put a pause between the stimulus and the response goes so far into what we do in law enforcement that,
what other group of people interacts with decisions that have to be reacted to, that can be reacted to non-reactively?
Right.
Or can be, that wasn't the right English, but can be paused. Okay, there's someone just spat on me. Do I A, B, C, or D? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to D. I'm going to just realize they're having a bad day and not club them or punch them. All right, play.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can't. You guys are – I can't imagine being a cop, man. I can't imagine going through the shit that you guys have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it can be wild.
I can't imagine.
Traver, thanks again for coming on. Always enjoy talking to you. I love the 8 steps. Something too that I want to, before we close up, I guess, I want to come back to them, because we talk about these in the framework of dealing with a divorce or the loss of a relationship, but really you can apply these to any sorts of grieving, right?
Absolutely.
Death, loss of a loved one, loss of someone close to you, a loss of a job, even
your health. It's so fascinating, Garrett. I get people that email me that say, I'm reading your book and my relationship's great, but I just got diagnosed with cancer, or my spouse died, or I lost my job, or I'm dealing with mental illness, some depression. It's just the frame that I lived through, because it was my experience was divorce, but this is universal, I think, for any kind of grief or challenge.
Absolutely. Traver, my personal Buddha. That's why I call you. That's why you have that nickname, man. You're always there with the insight.
Thanks, brother. I love you. Thanks, you guys, for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure as always. OneDayStronger.com is your website. We'll put links to all of your course. And of course, go to Amazon, buy a copy of Today I Rise. Even if, like you just said, if you're not going through a divorce, it'll give you some empathy. It'll help you understand if a friend is. It'll help you understand the grieving process. I think, too, when I read it, it gave me insight into going to the divorces that we go to, the domestics that come out of it, and that process of a domestic violence call that was because someone finally said, I want a divorce, and that grief and dealing with it and understanding some of that. I thought it even helped there, even though I'm not going through a divorce, and God willing, hope I never do. It helped me be a little better at my job, which, again, whole point of the show is to be a little bit better at everything. So even if you're not anticipating this issue, I suggest you buy a copy of it just to understand what your clientele are going through.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Traver, we're going to have you on again soon, man. But thanks for your time today.
Be well, everybody. Take care.
All right. Thanks for listening to Traver and all of us here on the Squadron. If you like what you heard today, if you got something out of this conversation with Traver, and I have a hard time believing that you didn't, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. It really helps spread the word of the show. And if you heard something on the show today that you know a friend or a loved one needs to hear, do 2 things. Tell them about the show, number 1. You can email this episode directly to them from thesquadroom.net. And also, number 2, direct them to onedaystronger.com, where they can get in touch with Traver, and he can do some one-on-one help. They can read some of his blog posts, and they can get a real sense of what this man's mission is. To keep up to date on the show, you can text the Squad Room, all one word, to 44222 to get signed up for our mailing list directly from your phone. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Squad Room or on Facebook. And, of course, follow Traver on Instagram. Traver's Traver, and it's Boehm. If you have a question, want to reach out, start a conversation, my email, garrett@thesquadroom.net. Garrett is 2 R's, 2 T's. Met another Garrett on patrol the other night. Another officer from a different agency, and it kind of blew me away. And I think this is the third now second Garrett I've known on patrol, and good to know the name is building, a little building momentum. I am definitely on the older end of it, but I'm glad to see that I'm sort of the grandfather figure of the name out there in law enforcement. Anyway, also, lastly, I want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by you. And if you want to go to patreon.com/the Squad Room, Patreon is patreon.com/the Squad Room. You can make a donation of any amount that you choose on a per episode basis to help support the show, help us keep the lights on, and help us keep moving forward. That's our goal. Excuse me. Move forward. I want to move forward. I want you to move forward. I want all of us to move forward. I want the profession to move forward. I want our citizens to move forward. All of that. It's getting a little grandiose, I know, but here we are at the end of the show. So thanks for listening. Until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.